record and we'll get started. Once again, welcome to our Zoom chat on organizing club meetings. And I've got everybody signed in, so we're just gonna get started right here. So first of all, hopefully at some point in your life, you've seen this. And if you haven't, if there's nothing else you get out of this training, this is the one thing I hope you remember. I will show it 3 or 4 times throughout the training because I think it's really the most important aspect of organizing a club meeting. If you think about what happens at your club meeting, my guess is that there are very few of you who actually have a wheel like this that's going on. We tend to see the blue section of business taking up 90 to 100% of our meeting and never really focus on the fun and learning aspects that are probably the more important part of what our young people are getting out of the program. So basically, the gist of tonight is how do we make a meeting look like this, where we maybe spend only 15 to 20 minutes doing business, and then what kind of things can we incorporate into our meeting that would be included in fun and learning, and where do those ideas come from? And this could, this is really for a club meeting, but if you think about a project meeting, it could be very similar. I think it's important to be sure to add a little fun and a little business into your project meetings also to make sure that you're covering the entire aspect of our children that we're working with. So first of all, thinking about the business meeting, I can guarantee you for me, as a 4-H member and probably even as a 4-H leader, this tends to take up way more time than it probably should. I think this is the thing that we focus on the most. And so does anybody in the chat box, if you have any ideas for how do you think you can keep a business meeting down to 15 to 20 minutes? So think about that. And those of you who just joined us, if you want to write your name and county in the chat box, spend about 1 minute giving me any ideas you can think of how you can keep your business meeting 15 to 20 minutes long. All right, so somebody wrote that you want to stick to what's on the agenda. That's an excellent idea. Any other thoughts on how we can have 15 to 20 minute business meetings? Have the young person, the president, run it. That's another great idea. And preparing them for it too would also be very helpful. So making sure you have a president who's ready, maybe knows the agenda, would be a great idea. Well, lucky for all of you who didn't have any other ideas, I have spent a lot of time coming up with some things that we can do to help make 15 to 20 minute business meetings. So one thing you can do is that you really want to have a printed agenda or something on the wall so that the entire group can see where you're going. You want to make sure that everybody knows the beginning and the end of the meeting and what's going to happen in between. Sometimes it gets a little pricey to print agendas, especially if you have a larger club. So having a blackboard or a chalkboard or maybe buying a big whiteboard where you can write the agenda up is really going to help people to stay on task. So that stick to what's on the agenda that Jenna came up with is definitely having a printed agenda will really help with that. Another thing you can do is if you have a really large club, you can do a sign-in for roll call. And people like to argue with me about this one because we've always heard that roll call gives our kids a chance to speak in front of a group. And while that's true, I think that in 4-H, we can create a lot of other opportunities for young people to speak in front of a group. So if you have a club that's taking roll call, your roll call is taking 5 to 10 minutes because you're waiting for kids to talk and they're shy and it's just not working out well, just have them sign in when they walk in the door, and that's going to help to shave a few minutes off your meeting. You can really spend that doing some more quality things than what's happening during your roll call time. And you can even still do the question. I know that sometimes that's a cool things for kids to answer. So you can even have them answer a question in the roll call book, and you can make that part of like a scrapbook that you put together at the end of the year. Another thing that we can really do to shave off time is really focus on committee work. I think a lot of times we spend a great deal of time asking kids ideas for what kind of recreation we want to do, what kind of fundraising, community service, or where they want to go on their trip. So if you have that done in small committees either before or during the meeting, then they can come and say, you know, we had 20 ideas, but these are the 3 we think are the most important. Let's vote on the one that we like the best. So if you can kind of think about what your meeting agenda looks like and break those agenda items into committee work, those things can get done prior to the meeting. They could even get done after the meeting. Or I've even seen it where people break up into groups of 10 or 5 people or however many in your club, and you have one group work on what kind of things we're going to do for fundraising, and one group work on what day we're going to go to the nursing home, and one group work on what day we're going to go to the park and have a club picnic. And then they can all come back with their ideas. And then rather than a group of 30 or 10 or 15 people discussing it, you have people that already discussed it saying, these are the 3 things that we think will work best, or these are the 2 suggestions we have, and then the club can vote on those. Also, we spend tons of time rereading the newsletter or giving announcements. And I hope that we can trust all of our 4-H parents, which may not be true, to know the announcements and read them. So if you make in a normal thing that you print the announcements and hand them out or write them on your whiteboard where people can read them, it spends a lot less time for you having to reread them. I mean, I know that how frustrating it is for us to go to a meeting and I went to a meeting, I think it was yesterday, and all they did was read the slides to me. And I can read slides myself. And so I think if we can have announcements printed, we don't have to reread them to people. Unless there's maybe something really important you want to highlight, it's not important to reread those. Also, we spend tons of time re-giving the secretary's report. Most of the time, we have very little to few changes in the secretary's report because people don't remember what happened at the last meeting or they weren't there. So you could always pre-post this or even print them out and have people read them ahead of time. Once again, if this is a cost issue, you could use Facebook or other social media or a website to post those secretary minutes. And that way you don't have to spend the entire time reading them. You can just ask for approval of them as posted or as printed. So that's going to, once again, save time, especially if your secretary is a young person who maybe struggles to read some of those names and some of the things that happen. So I think it's an easy way to cut some more minutes off your time there also. And the last one is we can really lessen the number of decisions. There's a few things that happen at the club meeting. I think it's really good to make sure that youth are involved in the decision-making process. But there's a few things that happen that maybe you don't need as much of a decision, like what time are we, or how many things are we going to sell at the food stand, or what kind of food are we going to sell. Let's decide to have a food stand, and then let's leave it up to a committee or another group of people just to make those decisions. So think about the agenda that you have in front of you and try to think about 3 or 4 things that really are the decisions you want to make, and let the rest of them kind of just be made by the person, the president, a group of officers, a committee, or in some cases the leader, depending on what those decisions are. There's really not a need for young people to make sure that every single thing down to every little detail make the decisions. It's the big process of what kind of things the club wants to do and how they want to spend their money that's important. And there may be some things that we don't have to do, or we can do it at next meeting, or maybe have already been decided for us and we don't need to discuss them as much as we do. So those are some ways that you can make business 15 to 20 minutes. I think we tend to often plug way too many things into one meeting, and that's what gets us to spending 30, 40, or 50 minutes talking about stuff. Some additional things we can do is really look at our decision-making process. Right now, most of our clubs, I'm guessing if you don't, that'd be great if you could let me know if you don't, but most of our clubs are using parliamentary procedure through Robert's Rules of Order. So if you're not one of those, type to me in the chat box and let me know, because I want you to definitely share more about what your club is doing. What Robert's Rules of Order normally looks like is there's a discussion, then we make a motion, and then we vote. And what this tends to do is all of our young people who don't know what's going on or are new to the club have this look on their face. And they're like, what is happening? And so there are some things we can do to really change the way that we approach our decision-making process to make sure we don't have these confused children and even confused parents. I don't think it's right to maybe get rid of it because it really helps to set a precedent for when they get older and are in a business meeting, but I think there's some different things we can do to make the confusion less at club meetings. So let's look at some decision-making alternatives. How do we make decisions without maybe stressing out our members or boring them to death? So when we make decisions, we first have to come up with some ideas. So besides just having a big discussion at the beginning of the meeting, we could do things like we could brainstorm. We could write them up on the board. We could have people just shout out what they're thinking. They could get in small groups and come up with an idea. So if the idea is, it's September, what recreation do we want to do this year? And everybody comes up with the things that they like to do, and then we put them all in a big pile. We have a list of stuff starting in September then, versus having to do it every single meeting. We could all do some consensus making decisions where we kind of sit in groups and one person says, well, this is what I think. Another person then builds on, well, I think that's a good idea, but I want to add this to it. And then we come up with an idea that we didn't have to discuss or argue about ahead of time. We can just kind of make it as we go. We could also do some rapid response where you yell out, what is the fundraiser we should do this year? Everybody starts yelling out their answers. And I think I've seen it in a lot of club meetings where we'll say, what do you want to do for fundraising? And kids sit there and stare at you because they either are too scared to talk or they're not sure they're supposed to say anything. So if we create a culture where kids feel empowered to just say what they think during the meeting at the appropriate time, then I think we might get more answers from kids or from parents that are able to just say what they're thinking at that time. And I think it's always important to talk about the fact that no answer is necessarily a terrible answer. They're all interesting. I remember a rapid response of where do we want to take our club trip, and Hawaii and China were all these answers. And while they may be unrealistic, at least kids were talking and they weren't just sitting there waiting for somebody else to respond. You could also have a suggestion box. Put a question on the board that you know you're going to discuss when people come into the meeting. Have them write things on a sheet of paper and put it in the box. Or I've seen it where you take a piece of poster board that says pasteboard, not poster board. Got to change that. But basically, you write a question on the poster board, you put them all around the room, and kids could write their ideas up. And it gives them time at the beginning to really think about the things that they might want to do. You can also have buzz groups, and this would be a great one to have at the beginning of the year. And so you could write a topic on a sheet of paper, have kids circle around it, and they write as many things down as they can about that topic. And then you spend 5 minutes there, you move to the next, or maybe even less, and you move to the next topic, and you move to the next topic, and kids just kind of write down things that they're thinking about. As a leader, it gives you a whole bunch of suggestions to keep kids on track throughout the rest of the year. And there's also ways that we can choose the idea. So those were the ways to gain ideas of things we want to do. So how do we choose the idea besides doing our typical parliamentary procedure? One is, like I said, committee work. This is probably the best suggestion if you want to shave down those meetings and make them more enjoyable. And once again, committee work could be done ahead of time. A committee could even do work via text, email, social media. They can get together and hang out. They can come 10 minutes before the club meeting and have a discussion, or you can do that committee work during the meeting and have each person join a committee that's happening during that meeting. Once again, they're going to take all those bogged down ideas that you may have gained through your ways to gain ideas, and they're going to narrow it down to 2 or 3 things that then the club could choose that they want to do. You could also use revised parliamentary procedure, and my guess is this is what most of us are using in our clubs. So if you look back at our previous slide, Robert's Rules of Order really says you have discussion, then you make, or actually it's you make a motion, then you have discussion, and then you vote. And so most of our 4-H clubs, we're discussing things, then we're making motions, and then we're voting. So that would be the revised parliamentary procedure. Maybe then we don't have to worry about how we amend or how we do those things. That maybe that's not important for 8, 9, and 10-year-olds, or even 15, 16, and 17. You can also do consensus. Is everybody okay with this idea? Raise your hand. Everybody says yes, and you move on with your life. And you don't have to worry about doing all in favor, say aye, all against, all opposed, no. And you can just kind of say, is everybody cool with that? If you're not, let us know and move on. That way, it's a lot easier way to make decisions. Or you could do majority rules, and you could just have people raise their hands, or you could have them put stickers up on the ideas that are in front of them, or you could have them write little tally marks. So don't get stuck thinking that you have to follow parliamentary procedure. I think a lot of us may have clubs where all we have are 8, 9, and 10-year-olds. We maybe have 1 or 2 older kids, and the 8, 9, and 10-year-olds are super confused, and they don't know what's going on. Let's look at ways to make their experience engaging and enjoyable versus worrying about have to follow what the club did the year before, or what every other club is doing, or what you learned 4-H is supposed to look like. A lot of us come with preconceived notions based on the things that we've done in our 4-H experience or seen at other 4-H clubs, but know that there isn't actually a thing that says you have to use Robert's Rules of Order. Your constitution may say that, but there's ways to change that also to make it more of an easy process for young people to make sure they are part of that decision-making process and they're not dragging meetings out for hours and hours and hours. So that's kind of the gist of how to cut that business meeting down. It's really hard to get to 15 to 20 minutes, but I think we can really work towards making that happen. The next section of our wheel is fun. So if you look there, it's listed at 15 to 20 minutes. It could be a little bit longer if you wanted to, but what does that fun look like? So fun could be recreation. So I think a lot of times as a club leader or as a person who's helping run the club, we get bogged down. So appoint or elect a recreation leader for your club. Don't take this on. There are other people who can do this. Also, you can make it a committee. Say, we're going to form a recreation committee. Who wants to help with that? They volunteer. They're in charge of planning it. Or you could assign a family each month to say, this next month, the Smith family is in charge of recreation. The next month, this family, and let them know at the beginning of the year so they can kind of plan for that. But once again, as leaders, we tend to think this is all of our job to do, but it's not. We can definitely work with our club members to make this happen. Everybody knows some games or things that they can do, so they can bring that to the table. I also think it's important to make sure that your recreation group has the financial support that they need to be successful. You want to make this fun. Most of our clubs have money. Don't be afraid to spend $20 on the materials you need to make a fun activity happen. It's really an integral part of getting kids engaged in our 4-H program. If you need support, you can ask your county 4-H educator to provide that support for you. They have lots of game books or know where to find them. I think I have 15 or 20 here that I've offered to loan out to people. So if you're looking for something, you just can't get it started, there are also tons on the internet that have written by other states that they could use in order to make that happen. One example of that I'm going to show you here. I'm going to do a new share of my screen so I can show you one that I found that I really think is probably one of the better ones that's out there. So let me think, where is this? Sorry, it's just taking me 1 second here to get this up. All right, so this one is from Kansas, so hopefully you can see it there. So it says, so you're the recreation leader of your club, and there's tons of these out there, so a quick search can help you. But what I really like about this Kansas one is it tells them how to be a recreation leader. It's not always easy to get up in front of a group of people and teach them how to do something. So it really goes through some logical things to tell them about making sure that they plan ahead, they demonstrate, they try to involve everyone. So it might be a good guideline, especially for families or parents of young people who are taking on this role if they're not old enough to really look through. In addition, it has some additional ideas. So it gives you, this is super easy, a recreation, a glass of jelly beans, how many are in there beforehand, and then at the end you give out to the person that guesses the right number. So there's some really easy, probably inexpensive things you can do, but you'll see that it's pretty long, so it has tons of ideas plus a planning sheet to help them get ready. But once again, there's lots of these listed on the internet, so feel free to look those up. But that was what I liked because it really had some information about how to do it, not just the activities that go with it. Okay, we're gonna go back to our PowerPoint so you can see that. And once again, this will all be posted online, so if you don't have time to take notes or anything, you'll be able to see this later, so that part will be there. In addition to recreation, fun isn't always just doing recreation. It can also be celebrating. Do you have a birthday club? So every month you sing happy birthday to your 4-H members and give them a cool gift. I mean, if I'm going to get a gift or my kids are going to get a gift, they're going to show up to the meeting. So if it's their birthday month, I can guarantee you that they're going to be there because that's cool for them. They're 6 and 11, so maybe that's why that's cool for them. Also, refreshments can be the fun. What meeting is fun without refreshments? So think about, once again, this is the same thing. Don't take this on it. You have to buy refreshments for your club. There's a couple ways you can do this. You could ask club members to bring refreshments each month, or you could say, hey, listen, this is an important part of the fun of our meeting. We're going to pay for refreshments every month, and then you could have a committee that plans what they want to buy with a budget. Really great skill for them to learn. And last of all, recreation could be adventures. It doesn't have to be something that happens at the club meeting. Maybe you're going to go to the park and play on the swings during the meeting, or you're going to have a camp out with your families, or you're going to go to the local skating rink or laser tag place, or there's some places out there with the places where you got to solve all the clues to get through it, the escape rooms. So there's lots of different things that can include recreation that don't have to necessarily be things that you can just do at your club meeting. It could be an adventure where you go and actually do something with your club members. Remember, kids raise money to be part of your club for the most part. Let's spend it on the kids who raise the money so they get to do the fun things that are involved with the 4-H program. So the last section is the longest section. It's this red section down here called learning. I think this is the one we neglect the most in the 4-H program because we think it's just naturally happening. I've heard many times, well, my parents just want to come for 5 or 10 minutes and they don't want to stay and they just want to go home. That may be true, but that's because that's the culture we've created in our meeting. If we create a culture that looks like this and you know that you're going to go for an hour normally and your kids are going to engage in these 3 areas, it's going to be much more likely that parents are going to want to stay or older members are going to stay if they're engaged if we make sure that we create a culture where this is what our meeting looks like. So you can start using the wheel and showing it to people and talking about it. And it might help to get more support around changing how your club meeting looks. So what does this learning look like? This could be demonstrations, so having club members talk about something they're interested in. It could be having a guest speaker come in and talk to your club about, a topic that maybe they may not even know they're interested in. You could take a tour of a location in your community to find out more about what they do. You could take a trip to a different town to find out what's going on there. You could have a show and tell where members bring in things that are important to them and talk about what they have. You could invite people in to do workshops for your club members, and you could do community service activities. You could also do games that promote the learning group process, and then you can create that fun and learning all at the same time. So all of this may seem overwhelming. Once again, engage your parents, engage your members to help plan these for the month, and you can once again assign a committee, a person, or even a family per month to be in charge of the learning experiences. I think it's always important to use what you have. You have a bunch of members there that have things that they could share, so use them. I'm guessing a lot of our members have some kind of talent or hobby that they could talk to the rest of the members about that they're excited about. You probably have parents in your club who are really good at something that you could ask them to share each month. You could focus on project work. I had a club when I was in the last state I was in who assigned a project group to each month, and then they came in, talked about what they were working on, and did a hands-on activity with the rest of the club members. And another club that focused on careers, so they spent the year dividing each month up and asking a parent to talk about their job, what they do, and how they got that job. You could find out what other groups families are involved in. Maybe they're in Boy Scouts. They want to come and tell you about their Eagle Scout project that they worked on. Or they're in Rotary and they're going to talk about the people that are visiting from another country, or maybe even bring that person in. Or maybe they have a special story to share. At my house, we do foster care, and I think my kids at some point would love to talk about their story of what they're doing. And so I think there's just a way to figure out who your families are and use them to create that learning experience. So it's not really hard to find somebody. It can just happen naturally within your club. And if you're looking for more ideas, you can really go to your community. It's a great place to find resources. So have the police come and talk about safety and what to do when you're lost. Have the fire department come in and talk about fire safety and what to do if you hear the fire alarm go off, or making sure that your fire alarms are up to date. The National Guard can come in and talk. They have lots of different programs they do. A lot of our clubs are animal focused. Invite your local vet in to talk about animal health. Your local health department could talk about hand washing or food safety. I'm sure most of our communities have some type of business owner who maybe has a unique story that they would like to share. Here in Laramie, we have a lady who owns Sweets, which is our bakery. She actually was a 4-H member, so coming in and showing her cake decorating skills and talking about her business and then her relationship to 4-H would be awesome. Or you always have high school clubs that could come and talk about the things that they're doing. Maybe the forensics team could come and use your club as a practice in order to talk a little bit about what they're doing. So there's lots of things, even in small communities, that you can use to enhance the things that you're doing at your club meeting. Another easy thing to do is use the calendar to guide your learning. So celebrate holidays. Maybe every month do a report or do an educational activity about a holiday that's happening that month. So in January, you could have club resolutions, and everybody could share one of their resolutions, and then the club could write a couple resolutions and how to follow them. In June, we have Flag Day coming up. During your June meeting, or even during your May meeting, you can learn how to properly fold and care for a flag. Did you know that today is National Rescue Dog Day? So if you're having a club meeting today, what a great idea to invite someone in who trains rescue dogs or that has a rescue dog that can talk to you about it. This week is National Backyard Games Week. So you could play backyard games at your 4-H club. So once again, learning and recreation combined into one. And May is National Photo Month. I looked this up when I was planning this. So National Photo Month, you could have someone come in and talk about photography, or you can even have a photography contest and ask everybody to bring in their favorite photo of their 4-H project. You could have people vote and talk about what they liked or maybe what things they might want to improve. So using the calendar is a great way to kind of plan meetings, and they would always change that way. You could also use seasons to guide the things that you're doing. So in the fall, you could have someone come in and talk about apples, unless you're in Laramie because nothing grows here. But if you live somewhere where things grow, that might be a great thing to do. In spring, they could learn about gardening. You could have young people plant some starter seeds for tomatoes or cucumber plants. In the summer, we can learn about sun safety. There's beads that tell you when you need to make sure you have sunscreen on. You can have kids make bracelets out of them and talk about the importance of wearing sunscreen. And in winter, you can learn outdoor survival skills. So maybe how to waterproof matches or other things that come along with making sure you could survive if you were stuck outside for a while. So that's a great way to not have to really think a lot. You could really just kind of look up what's going on the month that you're having your meeting, and you could do the learning around that. If all else fails, there's a few things you can keep in your back pocket. And I'm going to show you a little bit more what these look like and where you can find more information. So there's judging classes where kids have to make decisions about something. There's skill-a-thon stations, which are stations about projects where kids do their own work based on a set of rules or situation that they're given. In Wyoming, we've created these project information sheets, which give ideas for each project of things you could do that you could bring to your club meeting. You can always ask your county extension educator. They love to come and talk at your meetings, so invite them to be a guest speaker, or they have ideas of other things you can do. And I don't often tell people to use Pinterest. However, this is a great time for that to happen. Or, as you saw, I shared some Kansas stuff. In a little while here, I'm going to share some Missouri stuff. Using it, other extension or 4-H programs are great. I will be the first to admit we have a very small staff here in Wyoming. There's about 30 people that work on 4-H, where in Wisconsin, where I came from, there are probably about 180 people that work on 4-H. So we may not have the time or the resources to create lots of things for people, but they're out there, and using other extension websites can really help us to make sure that we're providing great information for our young people. I'm going to show you these in a second, but I do want to let you know that 2 months ago, I did a training called Supporting Your Projects with Curriculum, and they have more specific ideas about how to create judging classes, skill-a-thons, and other things for your club meetings that are project related. So check that one out on our website if you're looking for some more ideas. In the meantime, let's see. Just need to share my screen with you here. I'm going to take you to the page from Missouri 4-H, and I'll show you why in a second. So this is the Missouri 4-H page. Similar to us, it has this project and opportunity section. And if you go down, they do a really good job providing you with resources that you can literally print out and not have to recreate the wheel. So I'm going to look at this one for clothing, and you can do this for any of the projects they listed. And under the projects tab, they're going to have all their curriculum. We have a similar set of things going on our site. However, they're going to have these resources for project levels. So they have judging classes here that you can actually print out. And the idea behind a judging class is that it's really about kids making decisions and having to choose between different things based on the situation. So there's probably one here that you could do, and they don't have to be in that project to find out. They can literally just check it out. So here's one called CARE. So if we open up this PDF, you'll see here that you could just print this out, and it says that you're going to need photos of or real items, 4-H judging cards, and a 4-H judging scale chart. And you may not actually need all those things in the long run. But down here, they're going to have a situation. This girl comes home after a soccer practice. She has a grass stain, and she's in a hurry to get dressed and make it to her club meeting. So it tells you exactly the things that she does, and you have to rank them in order as to the best choice to the worst choice, and then you can have the kids even talk about it. And the great thing is that Missouri does a good job and tells you the answers to the questions, so that way you can share it with young people. But it's really a great way for them to have to make some decisions, so it's a learning process. I'm going to go back here to the clothing project again. I'm going to pick a different project. So back to the project opportunities. Let's go to arts and communication. Here's one here for cake decorating. So same thing. You'll see down here they have judging classes, but here they have some skill-a-thons. So what does that look like? So we're going to click on it, and a skill-a-thon, once again, is a station. So you would put these around the room and have kids, they can work on them at their own pace. So you just print this off. It tells you what you need. This one you need a little bit of prep work. So this may not be the best idea if you're last minute. If you're planning ahead, maybe you're the cake decorating leader and you're planning to present the educational piece of the next meeting. This tells you what you need. And then it basically tells you what to do. So the situation is that the club member is in charge of refreshments. You only have white frosting. You want to make a variety of colors in the cupcakes. So their task is to show how to make one of the colors to go on top of the cupcake. And then they're actually going to do that. And then they can make a cupcake and eat it. So kind of a fun activity they can do in theirs. And the Missouri page will provide you with lots of different activities like that are already pre-made. If you look at our page, which is, if you haven't had a chance to check it out, we've got some new stuff going on here. But you can go down to our projects page and we have what's called project information sheets. And so we're just gonna pick on beef today. Every project has one of these. They're called project information sheet here. And it's gonna give you some ideas also of ways that you can incorporate your projects in your club meetings. And that's gonna actually happen on the second page. So it can mean this take it further idea. So maybe we could take a tour of a beef ranch, a tour with one of the learning experiences. That'd be a great idea. Maybe we can, let's see, compare beef tags from different feeds. So we could bring some beef tags in, we could have our beef kids lead us in talking about what kind of things they might look for when they're trying to pick what feed they're going to feed them. Or here's one that says discovering use for beef products and byproducts. That would be a super easy one to do at a club meeting, and it would help kids understand better what they're looking for. So there's just some ways that you could grab those learning experiences without having to spend tons of time doing that. All right. I'm going to go back to our original, where we were in our PowerPoint. Oops. There you go. Okay. So hopefully you can all see the PowerPoint again. I just want to let you know too, you may not know already, but about a month ago, we started incentive awards to help encourage clubs to do this, because we here at the state office think this is the most valuable part of the 4-H program, and we don't know that all of our clubs are doing this. So you can apply for the Head to Clearer Thinking Award for any educational program that you do in your 4-H club. We're going to give $200 to 5 clubs, so $1,000 total. For clubs that are focusing on educational experiences. And those awards will be based not just on the number of activities. So if you have a smaller club and you're like, we just can't do what a club with 50 members can, don't worry. We're also going to award clubs for the creativity they bring to a learning experience, something different or going above and beyond. So we just encourage you to record those learning experiences as best you can. And I'll show you how to do that in just a second. But we're also offering a Hands to Larger Service Award, and this one is just to encourage clubs to do community service. So if you do community service, the exact same thing. You won't be awarded the number, just what kind of things you do. Creativity being different, going beyond, whatever. So if you're interested in that aspect of what's going on, I'm going to show you. There is actually another training, kind of like this one, that goes through how to apply for those awards. However, if you want to save yourself some time and you don't want to spend a bunch of time watching another video, although I know we're super entertaining here at the State 4-H office, I will show you where you can find that online. So this is what our page looks like. So you're going to go to the 4-H page, and then it's going to be under current members and then club resources. And then all the way down, you'll see is the club award. So here's the Hands to Larger Service. You can apply online. You can fill out a paper application, or we have a Facebook group you can join, and you can just post things on Facebook. Same thing for Head to Larger Service, and there's the PowerPoint slide. So the top ones actually explain what the award is and how to get it, and then how to apply are those bottom 3 bullets. So feel free to check those out when you get a chance. And it might be a great way to get club members to say, hey, we can spend the $200 at a pizza party, or something fun that they might want to do. So it might be a way to help incentivize your club to want to do that also. There it is. There's the link to what I just showed you. So now that we've gone through the 3 aspects of the club meeting, I think it's important for us to really pre-focus on what does our club currently look like? Are we already doing this? And maybe if we're not, where can we make the difference and make some changes? So the first thing I think it's really important to do is consider belonging, because if you have a club and people show up and they're already feeling unwelcome the first time they're there, you've lost them. They're not coming back. If we tell people you can't join until next year, or we tell people we're not doing that anymore, you've literally already lost them and they're probably not coming back in 3 months. They probably are just thinking 4-H isn't for them. So it's important to make sure that people are comfortable the minute that they show up to your club. So is your location welcoming? And if it's not, what can you do to change that? Do you have some 4-H swag to give them, maybe a pencil, a lanyard, a shirt? And do you have signs up that have big clovers on them and say, this is a 4-H club? Do they know that they're going to 4-H? Are you communicating well with your members to tell them what's going on? I always think my saying is always communicate, and then communicate how you're going to communicate, and then re-communicate what you've done. Because that's the thing that we find that people leave the most for, is they just feel like they're lost. And so making sure that they understand your communication methods and feel welcome is important. Is someone greeting them at the door and welcoming them? Do you have like a welcoming committee or somebody that shakes their hand when they get there to make them feel like they really want to be there? It may sound silly, but do we have name tags on so people know people's names and feel easier to approach them? Do you hand out a pledge card for those people who don't know the 4-H pledge, so at the beginning when they stand up and they're all like, what are we doing? They can actually read something and not feel super awkward. Do you have things to do for people who arrive early? Are there some, like that jelly bean counting idea, or are there some different things that they can engage in if they get there early? And then I wanted to ask you, besides those things, are there other things that you can think of that maybe help to create that environment of belonging that we haven't mentioned on this list already? So if you have any of those, if you want to put them in a chat box and share with the rest of us so that we can really help to make members feel welcome from the very beginning when they arrive at our club, is really super important. I'll give you a second if you have any of those that you can share with us. That would be awesome. And then just to let you know, if you're looking for even more information on this belonging, the first webinar I did like this was actually on creating a welcoming environment. So there's an entire webinar you can watch that's on our leader training page that will tell you exactly about how to help make that happen in your 4-H club if it's something that you end up being concerned about or want to make sure happens. You see somebody typing, so I'm gonna wait till their message comes through so we can make sure we share everybody's ideas. But I think this is found to be one of the most important parts of our 4-H program, and things that we find as we do surveys that are really lacking. And we think that we're doing this, but we really need to be really conscious to make that happen. So I think one of the things we can also do as a group is we can do a club checkout to find out what people really think. However, this is tiny and I know you can't read it, but I'm going to post this on the website so you can download it. It's from Missouri 4-H, so you can just also web search club checkup. And what's on here is there's different sections. So I think you can probably read, the first one says leadership. The second one says adults, committees, programs, members, and arrangements. And on it, you give it to your club members, your leaders, and in groups or on their own, they can fill this out. And if they do it on their own, it might make it be more anonymous, so that way they're more likely to be honest. And so they can check that you always do this, the club sometimes does this, and then the club never does this. And some of them may be not applicable to your club. So one section is on committees. Maybe you've decided your club is too small, you don't have committees, and they may check never on all of them, and that may not be something that you want to look into. And then there may be some other ones you're like, that, does the reporter take notes and send it to the paper? Maybe you don't have a reporter, you don't have a paper, that's not important. And so those things may not be applicable. And there's a couple other ones on the internet that you can get that are club, like, how is my club doing? But this is probably the one that I've used the most throughout my career in extension. So I think this one just is really easy to do. And then what you can do is collect them all up, sit down with your officers or your team of leadership, maybe that involves a couple adults, a couple kids, whatever it is, and look through those never sometimes and wonder if there's some concern there. If it says, do the officers prepare minutes for the meeting and everybody puts never, that's concerning. We want our officers to run the meetings. We want them to be prepared. If they arrive early and everybody puts never because they're always late, that's another concern. So looking into these things, you can then create a list of things you can improve in your club to make it a little bit more organized and run a little bit more efficient. So once again, I will post this in its entirety when I post the recording of this webinar, and then you can use that maybe in your clubs to do a checkup to see where you're at and what kind of things you might want to improve on. And somebody said that one of the ways you can feel members feel welcome is make them have a title. And that's a great idea. In our belonging webinar, we actually talk about making sure you know every kid by name and that you maybe know something interesting about them, because they're more likely to be engaged if you take the time to let them know who you are. So as leaders, look at your current club. Are there traditions that exist that a new member would feel very unwelcome for, or that maybe help to derail some of your club's things that are happening? Are there people that sit in a certain place, and if that place was taken by a new member, they might get a dirty look or a weird, wondering why they're there? Is there parents who sit in the back and annoy everybody because they're talking too loud, and how do we stop that? Do you know you're at a 4-H meeting when you arrive, or you just kind of show up and you don't really know where you're at? Does someone welcome the new members when they arrive, or maybe even the old members, or somebody there to say, hey, welcome to our the Lucky Clovers 4-H Club, we're so glad you're here? How much different does that make you feel than just you walking in and staring around at people? Does your meeting start on time? Our time is valuable. We want to make sure we start on time. Are there cliques of members or parents or families that kind of, happen, and then those people who aren't in those cliques get left out, and how do we resolve that? And are there any aspects of your meeting that might make someone feel a bit uncomfortable? Are there things that are said or things that you do that are the norm that might not make people feel comfortable? One example that I give that hopefully isn't happening anymore at our 4-H camps, but was happening, I know a lot, especially when I was a kid or when I started an extension, is people would have to be chastised for forgetting things or losing things. They have to get up in front of the group and they'd have to talk or sing a song or do something that was inappropriate. And I know that we had a lot of kids who felt very disrespected by that. And so while you may think that's funny, there might be people who see that as being uncomfortable. So really be conscious of your audience. So I'm kind of going to close here with some things that I think are really important to consider as you think about how to organize a club meeting. The first one is make the fun and learning the focus of your meeting, not the business. And what I mean by this is, let's say you decide that your learning is that you're going to do bingo at the nursing home. Why not make that your meeting and have a short business meeting before or after versus making members come to a second meeting throughout the year? There's zero reason that you have to meet, unless it's in your constitution, which you can change, the second Tuesday of the month. Why not meet when it's most convenient for people and when you're already doing something else? Or plan bingo for the second Tuesday of the month so that you can make that community service or that project part of your meeting. Or if you're going to go to the park, meet at the park. Let kids play, let them do some activities, and then have a short business meeting or refreshments afterwards. Don't say we have to meet on the second Tuesday at the Elks Lodge and then decide that tomorrow we're going to go to the park and play. Make that all kind of go together. Make the focus of your meeting those really fun and learning experiences versus worrying about the business part that happens. Meeting organization isn't just what's on the agenda. So having a printed agenda is great. However, it starts from literally the day the meeting ends to the next meeting happens. Work with your officers, make sure they know what's going on. Work with your members to communicate what's happening, or find somebody to do those things for you. Don't just show up to the meeting, hope it goes away okay because you have an agenda, and then leave. Know that really having an effective meeting is going to take some planning to happen. Once again, I don't want you to feel overwhelmed as a leader and think you have to plan it all, but make sure those people are in place to make that kind of stuff happen so that you have a smooth 4-H program, not just a smooth 4-H meeting. And then think about, if you were 10 to 12 years old and you came to this meeting, would you be excited to be there, and why or why not? And the why not to the things we have to change. I know my daughter, this is her first year in 4-H. Like I said, we do foster care, so she's never been exposed to it before. And last night she was like, oh, another meeting. And it makes me sad to think that's already where she's at the age of 11. So we need to work on ways to engage our 10 to 12-year-olds because they're the ones we want to keep excited and involved. If you can reach an 11-year-old, you can probably reach an 8-year-old, and you might be able to reach your teenagers, or they're just going to come because they've been involved in it long enough that they know what's going on and they want to maybe help those younger kids. So think about that age group and talk to them about the things that they're looking for. And lastly, one of my biggest frustrations in life is that we make meetings mandatory. You must attend 5 meetings to start the fair. You must attend half of our meetings. You must be there for 3. The problem isn't the kids. It's that our meetings are probably not fun and engaging. If we have to force people to come to them, then they're probably not what people want to be at. So let's look at ways to make them fun and engaging so they want to come versus requiring them to have to be there. So hold meetings that are worth attending. Don't hold meetings that people have to attend. Easier said than done. because we're all busy. But if a kid's super excited about the meeting, they're going to bug their parents to get them there to have that opportunity to learn and socialize. So I just want to leave you with this club wheel. If you joined us late or you were blinking when I showed these, I think this once again is the most important part of what is going to help you create dynamic, organized, fun, eventful meetings. Tone your business down, and if you do business, make it engaging for young people. Help them make decisions, help them plan. Have some learning. The learning can be fun. The learning can be members actually teaching each other. There's a lot of different opportunities. And of course, have some fun. Get some food in there, get kids up and moving, celebrate the great things that are happening in your 4-H club. And this will really help us to move from maybe having members who don't want to come to meetings or parents who don't want to be engaged to really having a dynamic 4-H program where kids are learning and they're wanting to be engaged in the 4-H program. And that is the end of what I have. If you have any questions, I'd love to entertain them. You can also always email me and let me know what you're looking for. All of you have been muted, but if you want to talk and ask questions or type them, you're more than willing to do that. And I once again will share the PowerPoint and the recording and the resources that we used from this to help you as you work with Wyoming 4-H.